Welcome to Expedition Networking, a special segment of the Networking RX podcast. I'm Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and your host for this program. For those of you who are familiar, on the Networking RX podcast, we share information and have conversations with experts, such as authors, researchers, and social scientists. And all of these programs are aimed at helping you learn how to become better at building professional relationships and understanding why they work. In this Expedition Networking segment, however, we're going to bring on successful entrepreneurs and unique professionals and explore their networking adventure and learn how they used relationships to create lasting success. Today on Expedition Networking, we have Zachary Green. Zachary is an international best-selling author. He's a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps. Thank you for your service. And he's also a firefighting veteran. Zachary, welcome to the program. How are we doing today?
Doing great, Frank. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on with you today.
I appreciate you being here. Appreciate the things you've done. I certainly want to talk about your book, but I want to start in with just telling your story. You didn't grow up wanting to be a best-selling author, and it's just it's kind of all falling into place. So just want to get at that, and then we can go from there.
Sure. So as a little kid, very early memories, I had three very distinct dreams. I wanted to be a U.S. Marine, I wanted to be a firefighter, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I looking back on that time, I'm deeply honored that I was able to experience all three of those dreams. Now, sometimes there's a little bit of a nightmare along with the dream, but for the most part, it was good. About 50 pounds and 30 years ago, I graduated from recruit training at Parris Island, South Carolina, with the Marines, and got out in 1999. And then a couple of years after that, September 11th happened, the day that literally changed our world. And I felt really guilty, so I wanted to do something to give back, and I joined our local volunteer fire department. My full-time job was with Eli Lilly. I was in brand development, marketing, sales, training, did a whole bunch of different things there over about a decade time period. But I got lost in a fire. And one thing I remember in Lilly is we never really focused on the features and benefits and the chemicals that went into our medications. We focused on a problem and how do you solve that problem? What is the solution to the problem through that brand experience? And for me, the problem I encountered very viscerally and very intimately, if you will, was getting lost in a fire early on in my career as a firefighter. Totally dark out. You got 80 pounds of gear on your back. When I say dark, this isn't like going to the bathroom in the middle of the night and you got the little nightlight on. This is, you can't see anything. You literally not only lose track of left and right and forward and backwards, but even up and down, because you got 80 pounds of gear on, your dexterity's gone. And as I'm pushing my way down the hallway, assuming that I'm going to find a stairwell or a door on the other side, I find nothing but three walls. And I realize, oh my gosh, I'm actually in a walk-in closet and I'm trapped. Now, obviously I found my way out. I remember talking to my captain, and he was kind of making fun of me as I was getting so emotional and upset. And he said, look, that's just part of the firefighting process. You got to get used to that. That just never really set well with me. And I went back to my days at Lilly.
That was actually when you're in the fire trying to cray out?
It's actually, I've made it out. He was outside, and he's like, so how was it? Because you see me pretty upset. And, firefighters have real gallows humor. I mean, we see some pretty horrible stuff. You got to be able to joke about things just to kind of keep it on and tease people and stuff. And that's what he was doing to me. And basically, I needed to solve that problem. And I remember this glow-in-the-dark material that we used in the Marines on the back of our helmets. And I found a way to replicate it, but make it glow brighter and longer. Literally light up as bright as a flashlight and glowed for a dozen plus hours. And I started experimenting around, got some different developers to put it in different materials, came up with like a helmet band and a paint and a couple other products, wore it on my helmet and went into a fire a couple weeks later. That's all everybody could see. And they were going crazy. They started throwing $20 bills at me. I made about $5,000 in a 6-month time period. And then I decided, it's time to get really serious about this. And I remember a quote from one of my favorite leaders of all time, Teddy Roosevelt. He said, when you're faced with a monumental decision, the best thing to do is the right thing. The next best thing to do is the wrong thing. but the worst thing you can ever do is to do nothing. And so I ended up going to this trade show, and we literally did $100,000 of sales within 3 days. I had a problem though. I had no money to buy the raw materials. I had nobody that could produce at that level. I had no way to transport it, no way to package it, no way to distribute it. But I'm a Marine, and we improvise, we overcome, we adapt. We always find a way to accomplish our mission. And I ended up refinancing my home, maxed out my credit cards, took everything I could to get those initial orders filled. That started to develop. I ended up raising a couple $1 million in venture capital financing. And we started creating exit signs that don't need batteries, light bulbs, or electricity. And over about a 10-year period, we grew that into about a $30 million company. So to answer your question about, no, I did not want to be an author. I never even thought about being an author, but I realized I had a story to tell here, and it really wasn't my story. It's the story of the warrior in all of us. And I started to do research back to the Spartans and the samurai and modern day military, World War II veterans, and all these different entrepreneurs. And I found they had the exact same story arch, and that is difficulty, resistance, training that helps you grow. You only grow from adversity. You only grow from challenge. And then you have a crucible. The crucible is the crisis in your life, the most monumental point in your life where everything that you've done up to that point is not enough to get you through this. It could be a death. It could be a divorce. It could be a business failure. It could be whatever. And at the bottom of that crucible is the abyss. Abyss is failure. Abyss is giving up. Abyss could be even suicide. But on the other side of the crucible is that transformation that needs to occur to truly become a warrior. And when you transform, you have to change, or you're going to get right back to that crucible. And for me, my transformation occurred when I thought we were going bankrupt about 3 years ago. And the change that I made was I actually stepped down as CEO from the company that I started and brought in a new CEO. And that's made some pretty significant executive leadership team changes. And that's really what allowed us to grow into the company that we ultimately became today.
So the name of the book is Warrior Entrepreneur Book, correct? Or is it just Warrior Entrepreneur?
The website is warriorentrepreneurbook.com. The book is called Warrior Entrepreneur: Lessons from the Battlefield to the Boardroom.
Okay. Now, along the way, I mean, we do nothing alone. So you're getting help from people. I mean, who are you reaching out to with respect to the company and the product? I mean, we're firefighters around the country. How's that all play out?
Yeah, I mean, relationship and networking is the absolute key to doing this. And so you hit it on right off the bat. The firefighters they don't network. We're brothers. We're part of the same family. Now, It's a very dysfunctional family. It's like having two brothers that beat each other up all the time, but yet, still end up, staying together and being friends. What I developed was I saw the viral nature of this product. And every time I would drop off a band or a product at one of the fire departments, like 2 or 3 weeks later, I'd get all these orders for literally dozens of other ones. So I realized, what can we do to kind of build a network? And what I started to do is finding those firefighters that were entrepreneurial in spirit and nature. I signed them up as part of my team. And over about a year or two, we built up about 400 firefighters that were just simply brand ambassadors. They wore our products, and then they would have an extra amount in the trunk, and they would sell it out of the trunk of their car. And we did a really good job of covering the United States through that network and through that group that we ended up building up of by firefighters for firefighters. And then when we got into the exit signs, it became by firefighters for firefighters and those we protect.
Interesting. What's the name of the product?
So that product is called Foxfire. That is our firefighter product. Mm-hmm. And then LumaWare is our product that's sold in Home Depot and available in 25 different countries. Those are our exit signs and safety solutions.
Interesting. So you've developed this product. You've now written this book. You've stepped away from the company. What are you doing with your time?
I'm still involved with the company. I'm not as involved as I was before, but one of the things you learn is, as an entrepreneur, it's like having a baby. And if you just carry the baby around all the time on a pillow and never let it crawl and fall down, it'll never learn how to walk. And I did that with my company, and I heard it because I didn't allow anybody to do anything because A, I'm a control freak, and B, I didn't believe anyone could do as good enough job as I could. I recognize that though, so that's a good start.
Yeah.
And then when you have that same kid, it's if you keep them at home after they're 20, 25, 30 years old, you're not helping them out. You got to give them wings, let them go off to college or trade school and then go out and get on their own. And so that's kind of where I am now is, I'm still involved with my children, my company. I'm just not, having them live in my house anymore.
Gotcha.
What's next for me? I want to share. I'm really passionate about starting this movement, a network, if you will, of warriors and that warrior spirit. And that could be, a lot of it's going to be focused in small business, but it could be anybody that just wants to overcome their crucibles in their life. I want to teach people that adversity is actually a good thing. We shouldn't feel bad about it. We shouldn't be embarrassed that we grew up with a mom that worked 2 jobs just to be able to get us into college. We should be proud of that because that's going to make you a stronger warrior when you get out in the real world. And one of the things that I'm going to launch at the beginning of the year is a 90-day warrior framework training program. It's going to start with a warrior assessment that you can find on our website. It's not out yet, but anybody that goes to the website, they can fill out, the contact us form, and we'll send that out to you. And if you qualify for it, it's going to be a weekly one-on-one sessions with me and some of the other members of our team, and we're going to take you through step by step all those traits about leadership. And to your point, teamwork plays a major role into that, and networking does too.
Interesting. What are some of the traits that you'll be talking on with the people who qualify for this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, if you kind of go through my book, these traits, what I started to find were these common themes that were happening with not just the warriors, but with the entrepreneurs. So those traits are teamwork, purpose, confidence, tenacity, adaptability, grit, sacrifice, morality. And then I think one of the most important things that's really left out in both business and in entrepreneurship is serenity. The stress involved in running and starting a business is ungodly. Nothing like I've ever experienced before in the Marines or the fire department. And we really need to do a great job as both networkers and people that have groups and different types of organizations where you've got other people with a similar background to you that you can be raw with, that you can share and say, hey, I'm having a problem with this, but I don't feel comfortable talking to somebody in my company about it. Areas of mindfulness or prayer or however you choose to relax and kind of get into that groove, because again, it's a difficult process, and your problems are not unique to you. The same problems you have are the same problems everybody else has. It just maybe has a different product around it.
I think of the Marines, and you obviously lived it, and so you would know best. But in the Marines, there's lots of drilling, right? You're doing same things over and over and over again, taking apart your gun, whatever it might be. And even in firefighting, you probably do drilling as well. In business, I don't know if we have the ability to drill like that. And if not, what are some things that you might coach somebody on with respect to, hey, here's a way to prepare yourself to be these things? To just say, hey, be resilient that's easy, but when you're in the thick of things in business, it's almost too late. Whereas with the Marines, it's like, okay, we're in the thick of things. We've drilled for this. We're ready.
So yes and no. So I think one of the important things that I instituted in my company that really got us to that next level and made us very successful is drilling. And it was a weekly cadence. It was a meeting. We had a meeting every week for 90 minutes. The first 5 minutes, we did the exact same thing every time. The next 10 minutes, we did the same thing. We had a form that we filled out to really hold us onto it, really get it in a good cadence, because all meetings start the same. It starts with a vision or an idea, and then before you know it, it gets on all these different tangents, and then your half hour is gone and you didn't really accomplish anything. So drilling on identifying what those key problems are, prioritizing them, and then really solving those. So that's the first thing when it comes to drilling and getting into that cadence. Get into a really good morning session. So for you, before you get to work, maybe your cadence or drill is working out or praying or meditating or just walking on the beach, whatever it is. That becomes your drill to kind of get you in that mindset. And when you do that a lot and you miss it, you'll definitely feel a difference. You don't always see it when you do it, but if you miss it, you certainly see the difference. To the next point of your question is, how do we prepare ourselves for that battle? How do we prepare ourselves for that crucius and that crisis, the crucible and the crisis? So in my book, I talk a lot. The first third of the book is all about the science of adversity, about how Mother Nature has created us so incredibly well to get ready for these emergencies, training all the way back from that saber-toothed tiger that was chasing us in the cave, trying to get our bison meat away from us, all the way up to the modern day example of you go to your big meeting and realize you left your phone in the Uber and it's already pulled away and you don't know which floor you're supposed to go to for that meeting. Your body has two systems called the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, and they're set up for fight or flight. And we as individuals will react to an emergency or crisis in one of two ways. And actually, there's been some additional research that says there's actually three things. It's fight, flight, and freeze is another thing to look at it. As you go through that flight or that fright situation, your body's going to release endorphins. It's going to release cortisol, adrenaline, all these things. Your heart rate's going to increase. Your breathing's going to increase. Your pupils are going to dilate. If you've ever been in a car accident or talked to someone that's been in a car accident, the common thing they always tell you is right before the moment of impact, if they saw it coming, everything slows down. It goes into slow motion. If you hear from really elite athletes when they're on the foul line shooting that free throw, and they talk about how they can tune the noise out, how they can do that, that's your body actually releasing those chemicals. Now, the opposite also happens, and that is once that event happens, it has to lower your blood pressure, has to lower that breathing. Otherwise, you'll have a heart attack. And that's why sometimes you'll cry or you really have an emotional breakdown after a major event like that. As warriors in the Marines, it wasn't that we trained for scenarios, but we trained for that on and off of having that emergency, being dead asleep, and the drill instructor throws a garbage can down the middle of the room, starts screaming, yelling, shooting off explosives and trying to get ready of what would happen in a situation like that in combat. And eventually it just doesn't affect you anymore because you get used to it. So how do we train for that as entrepreneurs? How do we train for that as small business owners? I wouldn't encourage you to have a crisis or something along those lines, but as you get into those situations that are difficult, don't avoid them. Lean into them. Recognize that what's happening to your body when someone really upsets you or you forget something or there's a major emergency, and you start to hone that. And for me as a Marine and a firefighter, I was really able to get into that groove. You know, when I pull up to a fire and there's people jumping out of windows and flames shooting out, I actually get to a Zen level of calm where most people are going to be like, but that's what I train. Now, as great as that was, when my crucible happened, I wasn't prepared for it. I thought I had a heart attack. I fell to my knees. I stopped. I couldn't catch a breath. I could feel the electrical current shooting down my arm, my chest tight, all the classic symptoms of a heart attack. Well, I was having a panic attack, and that was my body saying that you can't handle this. We're going to shut down. But I was able to use that experience to propel me and make that major change of stepping down as a CEO that I would have never have done had I not had that emergency that happened at that time of running out of money.
Now, you're in the Marines. There's lots of people around you. You're in the fire department. Lots of people around you. You're in your company. There's lots of people around you. What's your advice to the solopreneur out there who has the 30-second commute down the stairs and into the study or wherever it is, and don't really have that infrastructure?
They do have that infrastructure. It's how they look at it. Just going down to the local Starbucks and finding other guys that are sitting there grinding away on their laptop, finding local incubators. I'm a huge fan of networking groups and other types of groups where you can get together with your peers to share with them. So you are not alone. Even though you may be the only person on the payroll and the only person there, get involved in different types of events, networking events, different types of entrepreneur organizational things through the chamber, because what you'll find is two things. Number one, none of your problems are unique to you. They're all happen to other people too. They just maybe have a little color difference to it. And the second thing you'll find is there is a solution to every single problem that you have. Sometimes you may not know the solution or you may not want to do the solution, but there is a solution out there. And sometimes it ain't pretty. One of my solutions was having to use my house as collateral on the bank note. And if I had failed, I would have not just failed in the company and gone bankrupt, I'd have lost my house too. That's a pretty significant risk, but I had to do that to progress through that next level of my company. So recognize you're not alone, and talk to other people and share ideas. Have mentors, but also be a mentor too. Pay it forward.
Yeah, good stuff. Everybody, it's you can find Zachary on LinkedIn. It's Zachary L. Green. His website is warriorentrepreneur.book.com. That's just like it sounds, warrior, the word entrepreneur, book.com, all one word. Best way to get a hold of you through LinkedIn, through the website?
LinkedIn, always shoot me an email, zacharylgreen@gmail.com. The website's probably the best way to get a hold of me. Just fill out that contact us form, and that way I can get you more information on the Warrior Framework. I do want to offer a special gift to your listeners, and that is that they use the coupon code podcast 2021, podcast 2021. They will actually get the book for 50% off, and that's only available through my website. I will also inscribe it for you, but you can still buy the book, the audio book, the ebook through Barnes & Noble's, Amazon, and pretty much anywhere books are sold.
Okay. Zachary, I really appreciate your time today. This has been great.
Frank, it's been a real honor to speak with you. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.